Hello everyone, welcome to Lit Studio. I'm Karishma Dumpala. So today we're going to talk about Vladimir Propp. He's one of the very important structuralists. So in the series of structuralism, we've already completed an introduction to the theory of structuralism and also about Ferdinand de Saussure, who's considered as father of structuralism. All right, I've also covered his important concepts and books in that video. So make sure you watch that video. And now we are moving on to Vladimir Propp. He's a Russian folklorist. All right, he's a Russian person, and he believed in the folk tales and the structure underlying the folk tales. All right, so he made a groundbreaking contribution to the study of folk tales and narrative structures. All right, and he also identified recurring patterns, which we would learn to be the 31 narratives, which is an important concept given by him. So he identified recurring patterns in the text and also in the folk tales that he analyzed and studied. All right, now we move on to his books. He has written very important book called Morphology of Folktale. All right, it was published in the year 1929. Now this Morphology of Folktale is a seminal work which outlines the theory of universal narrative structures. It is in fact in this book that he gave the concept of 31 narratives and 8 character types. All right, and this is a very important book wherein he outlines the theory of universal narrative structures of fairy tales, and it was considered a classic in the field of folklore studies and has influenced numerous scholars and writers. And now there is this other book called Theory and History of Folklore. 1946, it was published in the year 1946, and in this book he discusses the origin and development of folklore, providing a historical context for his morphological analysis. All right, this book actually complements Morphology of Folktale by explaining how these findings relate to the broader study of folklore. All right, it is like a sequel to Morphology of Folktales. All right, you have to remember the publication date of both the books. Morphology of Folktale is published in the year 1928, and Theory and History of Folklore is published in the year 1946. Also, he's a Russian folklorist. All right, and by identifying common narrative patterns across cultures, Propp challenged the notion that folklore is simply a reflection of cultural practices. So, what this means is that across cultures we have different kinds of folk tales, right? But if we observe the folk tales of any different countries, the patterns would be universal. If you understand the theory of structuralism, that is what it speaks about. All right, there is an underlying structure to everything. All right, everything you think of is part of a larger structure. All right, and every structure has universal patterns, and that is what Vladimir Propp also says, but he says it in relation to folk tales and the structures of it across culture. All right, and his theory suggests narrative structures might be inherent to human condition, transcending cultural boundaries. What this means is that the structures, depending on, if you are Indian, you have certain folk tales. If you are Russian, you have certain folk tales. If you are European, you have certain folk tales, right? But all these folk tales would have a common inherent structure. So, although we are from different cultures, it is inherent to human condition. That is the reason why there could be similarities in all these structures. And he argues that the narrative patterns in all these structures are very universal in nature. All right, and he talked about the basic structures that we find in any mythological folk tales. That is what it is all about. He is a very important structuralist, but he studied structuralism in relation to folk tales. You have to remember that concept. And now we move on to his important concept that I mentioned about. It was 31 narratives and 8 characters. And this 31 narratives and 8 characters concept was given as he analyzed folk tales of Russia and was able to find the commonalities between them. All right. Now, the 31 narratives are a pattern or a chain of events that happen among the folk tales. All right, all you have to remember for this examination is that he has given 31 narratives which are universal patterns he observed across all the folk tales that he had studied, Russian folk tales that he had studied. All right, there are 31 narratives, that those are the narrative structures. All right, now we move on to 8 characters. He divided the characters of all the folk tales that he analyzed into 8 broad character types. They are the hero, the dispatcher, the false hero, the helper, the princess, the villain, and the donor. All right, these are very important, and those other character types are the hero, the villain, the donor, the helper, the princess, the dispatcher, the princess's father, the false hero. Now we'll understand what all these character types mean. In fact, if you observe the names of these character types, even in the movies you watch or in the stories you read, you would be able to place them accordingly. Right? Now, if you understand the hero of any particular text, you can see that it is with this character that the reader associates most strongly, right? And he's the key person to the story. He's the protagonist of the entire story. And then after the hero, there would be a helper. He is the one who supports hero in his quest. All right, he could be sometimes a wise old man or sometimes a magician who appears to assist the hero in his most difficult or crucial moment, right? And then there is villain. He's quite contrary to the hero, and he's exactly what everything that is opposite to the hero, right? And then there could be false hero. A false hero is someone who appears to act heroically and can be sometimes mistaken as a real hero. A false hero is not necessarily a negative thing, because a false hero can be a second lead to the story. And also he could be sometimes be mistaken as a hero, and sometimes he could even try to steal the thunder of the hero by grabbing the credit that actually goes to the hero. All right, it could mean two things. He could be a good false hero, and he could be a bad one. All right, it could be like a second lead or a friend to the hero, or he could be someone who would actually steal hero's thunder. All right, and then there is donor. Donor is someone who gives something special. He could be sometimes be confused with the helper. Helper actually helps hero in his quest. All right, he can give some important clues, or he can assist the hero in his quest. But donor is someone who gives hero something very important that could come as handy to the hero when he most needs it. For example, if you have read Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Dumbledore, who gives resurrection stone, hiding the resurrection stone in his like Dumbledore gives resurrection stone to Harry Potter, so he could be considered donor in this scenario. All right, so that could be called a donor. And then there is a dispatcher. Dispatcher is someone who sends hero on a mission. And sometimes, in some cases, a dispatcher could be the family member of the hero, or he could be the father of the princess. All right, because they send the hero on a mission. And then the character of princess. Princess also has two roles. Like she could be one of the roles. She could be deliberately be sought out by hero. Like hero could go in search of the princess along the story, as a villain also tries to capture her, or she could be the reward for completing the mission. All right, and then there is father of princess's father. In every scenario that Propp has observed, princess's father is a character that hero has to pursue it. He actually fights, like he doesn't fight, he acts against the hero. He may also be in competition for affection of the princess. Also, he is very protective over the princess. All right, these are all the 8 characters that Propp has given in his work Morphology of Folktale, and we have to remember his important book, that is Morphology of Folktale, which was published in the year 1928. And Vladimir Propp is a Russian folklorist, and he belongs to the school of structuralism, and he identified universal patterns across different cultures and folk tales of different cultures. All right, and his concept is 31 narratives and 8 broad characters. These are all the important things that you have to remember while you are preparing for the examination. And yeah, you can take a screenshot of it. I've made the screen smaller, and make sure you take all of these in your running notes and revise them again and again. All right.